Hey guys, welcome back to the series Amazon Finds. Today we're going to do a review of the Megalith skeleton dial automatic piece.
If you haven't watched the first part of this Amazon Finds, I would suggest you go back, watch it, give it a like, come back, like this video, go back again and watch it again. And yeah, so just keep...
just write a piece of code where you have a recurring loop and then and make sure you use many different IP addresses. I think otherwise it doesn't count the views. So anyways, we essentially bought this piece from Amazon for really less. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. Amazon Finds is essentially inexpensive pieces that we can get on Amazon that interest us. So usually mechanical or automatic pieces. Mm. So this one is automatic.
Yes.
And it's a skeleton watch, but it's a Chinese-made skeleton watch. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Last video we went through Amazon, we ordered it, and we went a bit through like the specs that they have given. We now have the watch.
We also gave a first impressions video, the unboxing. Yes. And the first impressions. Now this is a 1 week in review.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is now the proper review. Just as an overall, like or dislike?
I like it.
You like it?
I really like it.
I also like it.
Why do you like it?
Now, first of all, the price is quite nice.
Yeah, we paid €37. That translates to about $41.
Mm. Yeah. So for that price, a lot of stuff you can pass by. Now you can see where they have cut costs. Just a couple of examples. Clasp is a bit. The movement is not a square movement. They have like.
It's a square case.
It's a square case.
It's an Apple Watch case essentially.
So even on the design wise, they skip a bit of like the design costs, but I mean for that price, we were talking about the Vostok Amphibia, which is a bit more expensive, but
it's about 1.5 times the price of this on a good day, maybe twice on a not so good day.
Yeah. So because the price is within the context, is that I think this is.
We meant the Commanderski, sorry, not the Amphibia.
Yeah. 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 So this watch, because the price is within the context, is that it is quite
extremely low. I mean, the price is extremely low for an automatic piece.
Yes. Now it is an automatic piece. It is a skeleton movement, and automatic. What else can we say? I mean,
there's nothing particularly special to say about it, but the fact that it's a Chinese piece, Chinese-made piece.
Yes.
So we have no idea what the movement is, and it's not a sort of it's not a well-known movement. It's probably some kind of clone of maybe a Miota or something like that, because since it's skeleton, you can see the movement, and it's not great.
Yeah, the finish is not there.
Yeah, it doesn't really have much finishing. Although for the price, it's really nice looking, but you can see that it's a sort of cheap movement. Yes. Because it's got gold plating. We think it's plating, but you can tell that it's a really thin layer, and it doesn't have that kind of perfected surfaces.
Okay, so then let's take out price out of the context. What are the things you do not like about the watch?
What I don't like about like you said, the bracelet, it's that very old, back in the day, the Casio and Timex and even Seiko design from the 70s. So it's essentially, I don't know what it's called, but it's
kind of like a mesh.
Clasp. It's a mesh bracelet.
It's a mesh bracelet, but it doesn't extend. Like it's not a
stretch bracelet.
It's not a stretch mesh bracelet.
But the thing is, you have the clasp is on a sort of slider, and it's a kind of a ratcheting mechanism, as it has these indents within the mesh strap, and so you it's a press fit into the indent.
Yes.
And then it also is a press fit when locking.
So and it has like a double.
It's a double hook sort of. And you just kind of lock that in place. But it's very irritating to put on your wrist.
Yeah.
It's quite annoying because, as you can see, if I attempt to do it like this, it's it's nearly impossible.
It's you won't do it. It's not. It's
Unless
not
you're
possible.
from 70s and you're really used to this. It's very difficult to put on because there's that extra bit of band, and that sort of pushes against the piece of the bracelet that you want to come in front. And then since you have to align the hooks and make sure this doesn't move on your wrist, because once again, a lot of the time, what happens is the watch would move to the edge of your wrist, and that would sort of extend, and then it wouldn't reach. So well, I got it on, but I've done this multiple times a day for 1 week, and I still don't like it.
Yeah, no.
So that's one of the things.
And of course, you can feel like as engineers, we know that like okay, the more pieces, the more degrees of freedom it's gonna have, and the cheaper it is to get the tolerances right with like bracelets like these. A well designed bracelet.
Just the deploying clasp, essentially, that would have been fine. Even if it was a cheap one, it would have been better. But
it would have been better. But
the thing about that is, this does not actually feel cheap to the hand.
yes, and that's why I like.
It's quite solid. Even the mesh bracelet feels really solid. I mean, if you can get past the clasp mechanism, this could be a bracelet that you buy on Amazon or somewhere on the internet to complement another watch, and I can see people paying a little less than the price of the entire watch for it, because it's actually quite solid, and it feels really nice on the wrist.
Yes, and that's the other thing. Like the watch itself feels nice on the wrist. It has a heft to it, which I did not expect at all. I was expecting it to be very light. I was expecting it to
Tacky,
be very wobbly. You know, when you do this and like it starts like I was actually expecting the movement to like move around inside, and it feels solid.
I mean, it's an extremely noisy movement because it has a rotor, and that really comes through since the case is not that well sealed. You can always hear it ticking. I really like that, but most people dislike that.
So like you can't sleep with this watch because, you know.
I mean, if you have your hand next to your pillow, you can hear every single beat very easily. And even on a quiet day, if your hand's resting on your lap, you can still hear it ticking. That's I find that quite fascinating. But what it shows is that the case back is not that well sealed with the case, and
that's why they've given, at least on the Amazon, they recommend, okay, don't put near magnets and don't
take it in water. Really,
put at all water.
3 ATM. Well, they say 3 ATM. I think that really means that it has no certification. I think you can say 3 ATM and not have any sort of water resistance rating.
Yes, I think as long as it has a case back.
It's not an open.
It's 3 ATM. Yeah.
Okay. And since you sort of think about it not being sealed that well, you kind of take a look at it, and then you realize that it's a screwed down. Well, it's not a screw down case back. It's just it has screws in it. I don't know how to describe that. So there are multiple screws that hold down
the case
back against the case, and therefore you can sort of see a slight gap between the case and the case back. I mean, you would really have to look for it, and at the points where the screws are fixed, you can actually, since they're sort of shiny, you can sort of see the light reflect off them for like maybe 1/10 of a millimeter of gap is there, and so you can actually see the screws underneath, and I'm sure there's a gasket, but you can tell that it's not that well sealed, of course.
Yes. No. That was actually going to be my question. Like, do you think there's a seal in between the?
There has to be a gasket in between, otherwise it would already have water because I washed my hands.
Okay. Yeah. Apart from that, the design is, of course, based on the Apple Watch, or at least the case is.
Even the bracelet.
So the case and the bracelet. So it is Apple Watch homage. But they tried a bit on the dial. They've made like a skeleton movement, and it's quite a nice skeleton movement because they have the basics there. You know, a skeleton movement, engineering wise, is not just let's get rid of the dial. It has to kind of have like just a well engineered pieces so that you can see through.
Yeah.
So that it's an actual skeleton movement and not just a piece of metal that you can't see through, and that has been well done. So it is like a proper skeleton movement.
Yeah, because you can see the balance wheel.
And it's
And
it's actually very
rotating
fun.
back and forth.
It's actually very fun to wind the watch and see all the cogs moving.
Yeah,
So
very much so.
we would actually, I guess we would recommend it
Yeah, I think it's worth
as
purchasing.
a fun piece. Look, it's not gonna.
Don't expect anything from it.
Don't expect anything.
Maybe wear it once in a blue moon, and it's really fun to look at.
It's fun to look at. It's fun to screw and see the cogs moving. As we said, it might have problems with magnetic. It might have problems with water. But just as a fun watch.
I mean, don't. And the thing is, it's not that inaccurate. Also, I expected it to be off by more than a minute per day, but it's around 35-40 seconds off. And for a sort of cloned movement that has no known reliability, that's fine.
Yeah.
And for €37, $41, I mean,
like I can
it's
see.
absolutely fine. Most sort of Seikos, let's say Seiko, since there's maybe 3 times the price, you can get a Seiko 5 with an 7S26. An unregulated one of those would be only about 10-15 seconds more accurate than this.
Yeah, Now, if we take this just as like an engineering piece, I would recommend it. If I take it as
it's not an everyday watch. It's not a reliable watch.
It does. I find it very difficult to tell time with this watch.
That's
Now,
since it doesn't have it's a skeleton.
This is actually something we talked on the previous video as well. That the hands, I don't really like the color of the hands. Not because they're not cool. I do think the hands are cool, and I do like the color of the hands. I do not like them in combination with the color of the movement.
True.
Because
the hands are rose gold, whereas the movement is yellow gold.
Yes, so it just makes it a bit more difficult to read, and that's also one of the difficulties of making a skeleton movement. You have to contrast properly the skeleton of the watch and the hands so that it's still readable whilst being a skeleton movement. Now, of course, a lot of people have done it well. Richard Mille does it amazingly. Zenith does it incredibly beautiful. But it just means it's a bit more difficult on like lower end pieces.
True. And the unique thing about having a squared case and a skeletized dial inside of that is that your dial is always circular. So, and in this case, the movement is also circular.
Yes.
So the corners of the watch with the dial are completely see-through because it has a see-through case back and it has a crystal on top, of course. So you can see your hand underneath that. And the edges, all 4 edges, they're sort of quite big. So it's quite see-through. And that's really nice. It's kind of exciting. I mean, what it kind of reminds me of, I mean, it's the comparison is not remotely close, but the Jacob & Co. Astronomia, the one which is, I don't know what's called, invisible, I don't know, but it's entirely crystal.
Yes,
so
and it's like in the middle of the watch.
Yeah.
It's like they're like ropes, no, not ropes, but like
no, but
cords.
It's just that you can see through it entirely, wherever the movement is not, and there's a lot of free space. But I mean, there's not a comparison there, but it's still cool just as that is, and it's fun to look through. Okay. And that alone is one of sort of a unique feature of this piece, and you can't get such weird things in mainstream brands.
Mainstream brands don't do this sort of stuff, exactly, yes. Yeah, and I guess the last thing I do want to mention about it is the movement. Now, it is hand windable, it is not hackable. With the hand winding, I am not very happy with it.
It's very difficult
I'm
to
happy
wind.
It's there, but it's very difficult to wind. Yes.
I think that's to do with, so number one, it's to do with the quality of the movement, and number two is to do with the size of the crown and
Yes.
how it's not a screw down crown, so and it's quite difficult to turn because it's stiff and it's not that big.
Yes.
It's actually smaller than the crown on an Apple Watch.
Yes. Yes, it's a very small, and like to get in there, you need to.
Yeah,
Get
it
weird
doesn't stick out
angles.
due to the squared off flat sides. So the crown is not at a position that's that easily reachable and doesn't
Yes.
have any crown guards or something.
Uh-huh. Like if they made, if they just made this exact same watch with a bigger crown, it would be so much easier to hand wind it. And
But don't you think that might interfere with the aesthetic? Because now you don't really notice the crown.
yeah, you don't notice the crown right now.
It's not
but
tiny, but
even on the Apple Watch, you know, the crown is quite big.
but like sort of has some function and it's touch and whatnot.
No, I wouldn't mind it having
A
a
bigger
bigger
crown.
crown. Maybe
Maybe
if
by
they
2
want to-
millimeters.
Yes,
2-3 millimeter.
and
2
if they
millimeters.
don't, if they also don't want that to like impact the design, they can make it even flatter, like a just
Okay, it's thinner.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That would actually be harder to turn though, I think, because as it is, it's really stiff and it's hard to get a grip on it, and so I don't really see myself ever trying to hand wind it, and it has kept time, so the rotor is working.
Yeah. No, So like the rotor is there as well. Like you don't have to hand wind it, but yeah.
What do you think about the case back? Now let's look
So
at that.
the case back, I like it, but I do think it would be better if it was entirely a hand winding watch. Now that is because the rotor itself, of course, you is not very pretty.
Yeah, it's just a pressed sort of maybe
Yeah.
steel
Yeah, for sure, definitely steel,
rotor.
and it's not heavy, so it has a bit of trouble like going around. So
Yeah, and it's not that fluid. I think it's to do with the mainspring. I think when it's wound tighter, I think it's direct. The linking between the rotor and the mainspring is not that great, and I'm not sure. Maybe it's bidirectional. I'm not too sure if it is. It's because it seems to have the same sort of resistance both ways.
yeah.
So I think it must be bidirectional. Maybe,
I would
perhaps.
appreciate it. I would appreciate if it was a bit, the rotor was a bit heavier.
Oh wait,
Just
maybe
so
it's
that-
not. I think one direction has a little bit more resistance. Okay, maybe it's unidirectional, and that's the thing. So when it has some power reserve in it, so it's when it's running, the rotor is really not fluid. So as you can see now, even though it's supposed to be like at the bottom,
Yeah.
it's still towards the side.
Yeah, gravity. Like of course, gravity affects it, but it's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to make it move.
It's hard to make this camera focus. Anyway, we'll get some B-roll with it, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
No, I mean, yeah. Apart from that, I guess we've said almost everything.
But don't you think it's so interesting that you can see straight through the
Yes,
watch?
and that's what I really appreciate about them doing the skeletonized movement. They did it properly.
They did the hairspring well. That's the main
Yes.
thing you really want to see.
Yes, exactly.
can
They
see
did the
it really
hairspring
well.
properly, and the plates. Usually for watch movements, they make just solid plates because it's easier to just work with the forces that are like within the watch movement. By making the plates have less area, forces need to be distributed across these areas, and that's why it's difficult to engineer like a skeleton movement. So they did their research on that, or like maybe they just purchased them.
Maybe they cloned some skeleton movement, but it's still nice. It's nice to see and use. And that now we can move on to the hands, the rose gold hands. The second hand, it's kind of strikingly different. It's red.
Red.
And the Loom pip, the Loom marking on the second hand is the largest.
Yes.
And that's usually not the case. And so the hours and minute hands, they are then, I don't know what it's called, but they're sort of, they've got areas cut out in them.
So the hands are
Sort of
skeleton,
skeletonized, yeah. So it doesn't really block
Similar to-
much of the movement.
Similar to the Seamaster hands.
In what way?
The Seamaster hands are skeletonized.
Oh yeah, they've got like, it's not skeletonized, it's just got like part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. but it's thinner and it's easier to see through, and they do have tiny Loom markings, and the Loom is quite terrible, honestly. But
You don't
not really
expect good Loom
concerned
from,
about
yeah.
that. I guess if it's pitch black, then you can always sort of tell the time.
Actually,
But
I had it for
you
a
can't
while.
really see it glow that well.
Yeah, I didn't think about the Loom actually, because all the time I had it, I did not. I don't saw it.
Yeah, you don't really. If you walk outside in the sun and then you walk back indoors, you don't really see that bright green that you do in most other pieces. But it does have some limited Loom.
Remind me again what the name of the brand is.
It's a Megalith, and
Megalith.
they didn't have a good description of the actual name of the piece.
Yeah.
It just said Megalith automatic watch, and they're a Chinese brand, and they have many pieces that are automatic, and this is the only one that's sort of based after an Apple Watch, and with a square dial. But the thing is, it's difficult to find it because it doesn't have a particular name in the listing.
Exactly.
It's just an automatic watch, and they have like 50 different dial designs.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll link this particular one below. You can go and check it out. And if you have the money to spare and you're interested in something like this, go ahead. I mean, you're not going to regret it.
It's a fun watch. It's not gonna. We won't tell you it's
not a watch
horology.
enthusiast watch, you know.
Yes, it's not an
It's not
enthusiast
something
watch.
particularly special, but it's really fun, and usually you don't get something so exquisite anywhere around this price range, and it's sort of like a toy in the watch world, I guess. And
Yeah, basically.
it's sort of an occasion piece, and you don't really, at the price, you don't really expect it to last. I didn't buy it with that expectation.
Yeah.
And it's not something you should expect to wear daily.
Yeah, don't expect Seiko watch.
Yeah, don't have no expectations and just enjoy.
And you'll be
it.
happy. Exactly. If you have no expectations, then you'll be happy.
It's not a bad quality piece is what we're trying to highlight.
No, That's what I was saying. It's like it actually does feel quite a bit.
Quite put together, solid for its price. But the rotor is really loud, and of course you have the other quirks of an inexpensive watch, which are all there. So that, I think, concludes our review of the Megalith automatic watch based on the Apple Watch.
Yeah. Tell us guys what you think about this new series Amazon finds, and
Expect more. We have another piece on order.
It's already ordered and arriving. Let's hope to have it soon. And yeah, we'll continue just going through Amazon, see what we can find, because this is also a good introduction to the watch community. Just having cheap or
inexpensive pieces. I mean, I think most people can afford to purchase this watch or something similar to it and not worry about it.
Yes, exactly.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
You can find our Instagram at Standard Times Insta.
Oh.
Did it actually turn off?
Yeah.
Wow.